Surely someone must have thought the same, because in 2012, the site and brand under the company name of Beans Europe BV seemed to make a bit of a comeback. I say comeback, but it was clearly a very tentative appearance. Here you can see the site was restored with a crossed Z instead of a B this time round, although why they held what appears to be a design competition for this, I do not know, especially after they explicitly specified they didn't want copies of, and I quote, old similar logos. I mean, how similar can you get? Anyway, coming soon messages appeared on the site, even a video appeared talking of a mobile app and all sorts, but information on what happened here is thin on the ground, other than it seems to be Italian based and ended on the 30th of September 2015, which is a shame. Maybe it'll come back again someday. But until then, that's all for this story. Thanks for watching and have a great evening.
Beans.com, yo, De Niro, the web's newcomers, to get some, you gotta cool stuff, free stuff for free. That's what it's all about. Look, it's like I told ya, any site could be holding beans. I don't have to tell y'all what it means. Surf Big Cruiser, check it out on the net. You just don't know what beans will be next. I'll bet, put away your wallet. It's not about the cash. Put away your wallet and build a bean stash. Cool stuff, free stuff for free. From Beans.com, that's where you gotta be. Beans are for all. B-double-E-N-Z. The beans are for all. B-double-E-N-Z. Cool stuff, free stuff for free. From Beans.com, that's why you gotta search to the Beans.com. Cruise on over.
And there we have the true reason that Beans died. They covered the Wild Wild West. God help us all.
Laura and I visited Hassan's workshop, where he helped her make a Damascus blade for her Leatherman. While we were there, I decided to have some fun of my own and try out this whole Damascus thing. Or actually, it's pattern welded steel, but I'm just gonna call it Damascus. I didn't have time to forge my own billet, but Hassan was kind enough to give me a piece of twisted Damascus he had already made. So I set myself the goal of making new blades for my thread snips. I drilled out the rivets and disassembled the snips, so I could get a good look at the size and shape of the blades. I also sanded the paint off the handles, so that it's ready for a complete makeover. I welded the bar onto the Damascus, so I would be able to handle it more easily. Then it went into the forge to heat up. I had a go at forging the billet flat by hand, but my hammer strikes had pretty much no effect on this tough material. So I took it up a notch and flattened the material out on Hassan's power hammer. This thing is not only beautiful, it also packs quite a punch. What a difference to striking by hand. It was a great exercise in controlling both the hammer and the material, since I wanted to make it fairly flat and nice and thin. It took some time, but I got there in the end. I traced the shape of the blade onto the material and used an angle grinder to cut it to rough shape. Then I acquainted myself with Hassan's belt grinder, and we became good friends after spending quite some time together grinding the blades to their final shape. The small pieces of metal heated up very quickly, so I continually dunked them in a water bucket to cool off. Drilling the holes for the rivets was pretty challenging due to the hardness of the material. I had to take it really slow, and some drill bits were sacrificed to the Damascus gods, but I got it done. I heated the blades up with a torch and dunked them into the bucket to quickly cool them down. This hardens the material but leaves it brittle. At this point you're supposed to temper the material by slowly heating it up and letting it cool down, but this process takes several hours and I didn't have the time. So I opted to skip this step. That isn't great for the end result, but these fret snips will not be exposed to a lot of force, so I decided it was worth it to allow myself to experience the rest of the process. I hung the blades in an acid bath to etch the surface. This reveals the alternating layers of different steels that give it the Damascus look, since the steels react differently to the acid. Then they went into some very strong coffee, which increased the color contrast even further. Back at Laura's, I painted the handles black with some spray paint. While that dried, I gave the blades their final sharpening. I turned some brass nails into rivets by cutting their ends off. Unfortunately, they were not brass on the inside, so they turned silver with the deformation of hammering them in. At this point, I thought I was done, but boy was I wrong. While the mechanism of these snips is fairly simple, it's just two blades sliding along each other with a spring, the alignment of it all turned out to be very, very important. All my hammering and such had messed it up, so I spent quite some time carefully making adjustments while trying not to damage the blades or the paint job. I failed miserably at that, so once I got the alignment to a sort of satisfactory level, I busted out the sandpaper and an acrylic marker to do some touch-ups. In the end, these fret snips are far from perfect. One blade is not completely flat, the alignment is still off, the paint job is messy, and the blades aren't tempered. But I made them. And I learned a whole lot in the process. So while these will not replace my regular fret snips, they are a great reminder of the lessons I learned, and a challenge to try again at some point to see if I can do better. Plus, I had a lot of fun making them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Welcome to Overboard, Polygon's card and board game show. Today we're playing Cyberpunk Red. This tabletop RPG is the latest edition of Cyberpunk, the 1988 role-playing game that Cyberpunk 2077 is based on. Still following? Good.
That's what we're doing. That's why we're here.
That's roleplay.
Like almost all tabletop RPGs, Cyberpunk Red is led by a game master, who sets the scenes and portrays all the characters our players will interact with. In this game, that's me, Jenna.
You guys are really fucking bad at this. You jabronis are real fucking bad at this.
Our three role players have each crafted a character complete with backstories, stats, and personalities that will quickly become apparent. As they explore the world I've created, they'll encounter challenges, a character who's lying to them, a locked room, or maybe even somebody who wants to fight. And that's where the dice come in.
Or if you want to face down.
I also rolled a critical fail!
I'll ask players to make a certain type of roll, whatever seems most appropriate for what they're trying to do. It could be hacking a computer, a test of strength, or maybe just a really awkward social situation.
We normally only let one person in the bathroom at a time.
Oh, sure, but we're just doing normal bathroom stuff, but there's 3 of us.
Depending on how well they roll and how good or bad their stats are in that area, I'll give them powerful bonuses, or embarrassing impairments. There are a lot of other little rules, but we'll explain them as we go along. For now, it's time for your morning update.
The year is 2045, and Night City is still recovering from several man-made disasters of the early 2020s, and kites are popular again. Important Will Billing. In world news, the Kenyan Orbital Base has announced a new director, and in Night City, 2 are dead from an attack on